Hi there, my name is Chris Chan and I am an actor and musician. I have been born and raised here in the UK, and I actually grew up in a cathedral in Canterbury and learnt my music trade, and that is where I also learnt how to play the organ, which I took through to university. During the day, I am a professional musician. I teach kids piano, I teach adults music theory, but during the night I have a different occupation where I take off my suit, dress up a little casually, and become a comedian.
You see, in the theatre, I'm what is known as an actor. Whereas to Chinese people, I am what is known as a banana. Red on the outside, white on the in. And it's a great description because that's what I am. Mum's dad's side is based in Hong Kong, Mum's side is based here, and I myself was raised and educated here.
My name is Julia Cheng and I'm born in the UK. My parents are from Hong Kong. I'm first generation British born Chinese, I guess. I'm a dance artist working in choreography and movement. I've lived in the UK my whole life.
Hello Hong Kong! Hello London! Hello China! Hello drummer!
Hi, my name's Andy Leung. I'm a musician, a composer and a music producer. I come from a family of Hong Kong immigrant and I've been living in the UK for 20 years.
So yeah, we just finished a Lord Mayor show. It's a massive street parade and it's a very British tradition. We were just playing on the Hong Kong floats and it's especially important this year is because of the 20th years of the establishment of the HKSAR.
佢哋有，但係佢哋想
關你事？
唔係買咗啊！但係佢哋想錄下我哋一齊啫。唉，好差，咁夠熱啊？呢個好似熱啲喎，好似好大，好似好多咁喎。夠唔夠熱啊？我話上次唔夠熱啊，佢。婆婆，你嚟英國，你係咪開心嚟咗英國啊？
我唔開心。
It's not about whether you're happy or not. It's like
走慣我。
you have to survive. You just got to go.
阿公嚟咗，我搞埋啲仔女一齊嚟咯。
係啊。
因為唔開心啊。
Your granddad came, and then you got all the kids
初
over.
嚟就唔開心喎，得兩個來，
At first,
即
I
係
wasn't
細我
happy.
嗰時屋企嚇，
係啊。
我咪開心啊。
So she said, my granddad, your granddad comes with it, and gets the kids all over, and we all come over. And it's not about being happy or not happy. And she's like, at first, when we first came over, we weren't happy. Obviously, you live in a completely different country, but when everyone's all together, you're happy.
我想幾十年啦。
Been there for like over like 30 years. They had to go. They had no choice. Like they were farmers. All the stock died, and then like they couldn't make money, and they had to make sure they could feed all the kids. They couldn't speak English, so all they could pass on was their culinary culture, their food, Chinese food. So my granddad had to learn how to cook food because who wasn't doing that before. Before he was rearing animals and selling fish, which is why all my family like fish. Để có gì à?
My parents, whilst they met in Scotland, they decided to set up a Chinese takeaway down in Canterbury, which is away from like London and Manchester, where there's a lot of Chinese people. So I think I was pretty much the only Chinese kid growing up in the area. And it was strange because I never actually considered myself Chinese because I surrounded myself with so many British children and they would treat me no differently, and I wouldn't think of myself Chinese because I never spent time with other Chinese people. I grew up as a British English boy, really.
China, I've been to Shenzhen like once, but Hong Kong I've been maybe like 6, 7 times. Well, when I first went to Hong Kong, I was like, whoa, so many people that look like me. And I was like, I felt at home, you know? There's something about being in Hong Kong that is like, oh, you just feel like everyone else because everyone looks like you. So there's some comfort and there's a feeling of homeness without even understanding why, you know.
So, when I made it happen, one night in Beijing, everybody sings. One night until you go, one night in Beijing.
Night in Beijing.
Yeah, so for that bit, the drums should be not the build-up. Yeah, not full energy. But, so. Yeah, we can work that out. If you're from Beijing, make some noise!
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hey, 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 hey! 北京，我在北京，喝酒，喝酒，喝酒！在我在北京，喝酒，喝酒，喝酒！在上海在北京，喝酒，喝酒，喝酒！在上海我京，喝酒，喝酒，喝酒！一带一路，哎，在北京，一带一路，哎，的不行，为了美女，哎，我的美，我在北京 ，everybody say。
One night in Beijing，我留下许多情。
This is the funniest thing actually, is that I only spoke Cantonese until I was age 7. And so when I went to school, I was surprised that everyone else was speaking a totally different language and I didn't understand them. And I think it was that embarrassment of not being able to learn that language is that I had to work very, very hard to catch up with my English peers. And now a lot of people say I'm very posh for even an English person, and will say, you're very posh. And that's because I made extra effort as a child to be very English, almost to fight against that.
I don't feel more British or more Chinese. I just think there's a British part of me and there's a Chinese part of me. If someone asks me, like, where you're from, I say I'm born here, or I'm Chinese. I say I'm Chinese. And also my parents would always say, like, my dad especially would be like, you know, you're a Chinese person, you're Chinese. You know, like, we're Chinese people, you know, like, so. And he was very proud of that. And I'm proud of being Chinese, you know.
Do I feel more British or more Chinese? Both. The more I grew up, the more I realised that is just a label. Most people think of British Chinese and then you kind of glue them together, whereas I see of it's British Chinese and then it's sort of an interleave relationship. So that's how I see my identity as a British Chinese, and I think the most important thing is actually embracing who you are. If you ask me where I belong, I don't feel like I belong to this world. I think nobody in this world should have any sense of belonging.
My creative work are really, I guess, a self-reflection and research into my own kind of biographical research of what it is to be a product of post-colonialism, and yeah, and really trying to understand my own roots because I've never had that opportunity. that was a solo I created called Orlando Warrior. And one of the dance styles that I do is called whacking. It originates from the club scene. It originates from gay culture and gay club scene, and the pioneers of that dance style were influenced by lots of different things.
I grew up on British humour, so a lot of my jokes will be geared towards a British audience because that is what I grew up on, more so than Chinese humour. Flips there. Go straight on. Bow one last time. In a Chinese culture, you are supposed to be very respectful for others around you. You're supposed to be very respectful about your elders, your parents, and things like that. Whereas here in the UK, we have jokes that are all based on mother-in-laws and your parents and grandparents and the elderly. And I think because of that, humour is taken in a different way. In China, the main type of comedy is crosstalk, where you have two comedians talking to one another. And crosstalk involves 4 facets. It involves speaking, imitation, music, and singing. So that's Chinese comedy there in a nutshell. British comedy comes from sort of American stand-up, which is observational humour, but it's also based on irony and sarcasm. And I guess with this show, because I have a English sensibility in terms of an English sense of humour, but I look Chinese, I think hopefully I can show to an English audience at least that the Chinese do have a sense of humour and use some of the Chinese tradition, crosstalk, to be able to demonstrate that to an English audience. Set yourself for culture jokes and lots of silly songs composed the British way. Smoking weed, I mean fumes, I mean Beijing air. The smog in the city is healthy, I swear. Welcome to Chinatown. Welcome to Chinatown. Welcome to Chinatown. Let me show you around.
Yeah, so one of the songs that we wrote, me and Eric wrote together, is called Chinatown. It's 2017 now, and I felt like there are more than food and martial art and takeaways. But I think now we represent way more than this. If you look at sport, look at even music-wise, the music export now there's a massive push now with cultural export. So whether it's dance, whether it's music, whether it's film, film has been massive in China. It's a holistic push of the entire culture around the world. So for us, the song Chinatown is really about what Chinese is in 2017.
Walking on Gerard Street, looking like Downing. All of these jokers, everyone's frowning. Ni hao, ni hao, ni hao, dude, that keep shining. China. Massage, massage, massage. Happy ending,
One of my earliest memories, learning martial arts from my dad in the sitting room, me and my sister, and he would teach us this form, foot, punch, punch, da-da-da, punch, punch, hit. A lot of the movement in terms of arm motion is from martial arts. And so that was kind of me exploring the origins of one of the influences and inspirations within that dance style. And so that's why I wanted to learn some wushu and apply it and see how that informed my movement. So I had a really great Sifu who offered to teach me and share his experience and his skills. And sword was one of the ideas, and another idea I wanted to look at was pole, but I ended up choosing sword. And I learned some sword forms and some wushu forms and incorporated it into the choreography. Another side of it is warrior, the myth of Mulan, and I was looking at that and also looking at her relationship with her father, and you know, being a fighter, and what it is to be a modern day woman of today.
When the time in Britain, especially, if you look at the mainstream media, the only role models are really chefs or martial artists. So the identity is actually not very defined, especially for the young generation. My aim is really just to make music to the best of my ability at this point in my life. It's breaking the stereotypical, which is Chinese people doing Chinese music has always been an erhu or a pipa. Nothing wrong with those two instruments, but that is what we've traditionally been exposed to. Everybody in this team is just trying their best to make a difference, to pave the way forward, to make sure the next generations got somewhere to stand on.
Through the show, I've managed to teach English people or British people some, Chinese values.
As for dating in England, well, we tend to ask very generic questions on the first date. Things like, what's your favorite pizza topping? Or, if you're dating in 2017, how much cardio do you do a week? Whereas in China, it's so much simpler. 2 questions to ask on the first date. Number 1, how much you earn? Which karaoke bar shall we head to?
There's a huge cross-section in both Britain and China, and I think we get the biggest thing I've learned is actually stereotypes don't really exist. I mean, they do exist, of course they do, but the image of a Chinese person and the image of an English person, they're pretty much the same. It's just that we have different ways of doing things. And through the comedy, I can explore that and show we're the same, as well as being different, but essentially the same.
What does it mean to be British-born Chinese? British-born Chinese is just me. It's my British upbringing and being grown up here, and then Chinese is like the kind of Chinese culture of my parents, my family, my lineage. For me, it's taking the best of both of these influences in my life.
Yeah, so being British Chinese is I actually think it's a very privileged place to be. I think British Chinese has always been trying to, quotation mark, integrate into the society, and I think actually the way to approach your identity is to embrace it holistically. It's kind of the way that's my approach, my mindset to approach this, and once you got this mindset, I think it's about how you live it and the execution side of your life, which is how you actually live it out, and that's why I'm here.
What does it mean to me to be a British-born Chinese here? It's a very funny thing. I don't think it means anything particularly. Because I don't think there's any special treatment because I'm British-born Chinese. I don't think people treat me any differently.
I'm very proud of who I am. I'm very proud of where I come from, and I'm also proud of and happy with the upbringing and the luxuries I've had growing up here. And I say luxury because as a female or as an artist, I've had opportunities to be able to express myself, and I've had a lot of freedom. And that's a really small percentage of the world that has that.
I wouldn't change anything about my life. I am so glad I was born and raised here. I'm very lucky and privileged to be born and raised here. Here in the UK, because I'm Chinese, probably the only Chinese person in the room, chances are people will remember who I am.
I'd like to see it as taking the best from both worlds, should I say, that have been the majority of my nature and nurture.
comfortable going to China. And actually, even then, that's not quite right, because I think I'm nervous because I'm not very confident being Chinese. I'm afraid of doing the wrong thing. Every culture has, a way of working, a way of doing things, a right way and wrong way. Because I've grown up and behaved in a very English manner here in the UK, going to China, I'm very scared of saying or doing the wrong thing. I would love to go to China if I have a resident of China who's able to explain everything to me. I think if they can hold my hand, as it were, like a tourist guide, and explain this and this and this.
Next year, and I just really want to travel, really, and that's my calling. I need to go back to China, and that's one of the things that I definitely need to do, because I haven't really done that, really. That's really important to me, actually. Yeah, there's a village where all my ancestors are buried, and all my family, or everyone's kind of like Chengs in that village, and yeah, so I really want to go back there, pay my respects to my ancestors, see where my granddad used to live.
我想去中国，我想去中国，因为我觉得现在中国还有很多东西还没有发扬过来。我觉得对，把中国的东西带回英国，把英国的东西带回中国，所以我觉得 ，yeah， 我想回中国的原因就是那个。China to me now it is the future now. If anything, I think the world should watch it very closely, because it is the future. China is the future.
You ready? 1,